Hello, hello. Welcome back to another PancakeSwap AMA. This in the favorite kitchen of the whole crypto ecosystem. I'm Cyfrin, PancakeSwap's community manager and the host today. I will try to not speak too much today as I usually do because we have tons of guests for a topic that it's not really, I would say, really well known or really or I feel undervalued in the ecosystem, which is security. It's like you never talk about security until you need to talk about security. So you never talk about this until you get wrecked or you get scammed or whatever you want to call it. So it's really nice to have these spaces, these moments to talk a little bit about how important security is in crypto, and also related to our last launch, one of our biggest launch so far in this almost 5 years of life, which is PancakeSwap Infinity, formerly known as PancakeSwap before, and I think one of the most important and biggest um, improvements of our core DEX, which is why we are here and why we are still alive. And I want to present, or at least give a little bit of information about our guests before presenting. Um, we bring you guys three of the top audit firms in the space, which are Zellic, Hexen, and Cyfrin. Different, but not super different, and I will let them tell you about this. But these guys are doing ultra deep audits. Others are also really into education, which I love it. I love it a lot. And there are ultra respected names when in terms of crypto security. They have worked with layer ones, layer two, big projects like Chainlink. You know them no matter that you know them. I mean, you have been using products audited by them, or at least products that they have checked. So I will stop talking, and I want to give a warm welcome to Casper, Patrick, and Oleg from Hexen, Cyfrin, and Zellic. Hey guys, how are you doing today?
Hey.
GM.
Hey, great to be here.
Nice. Thank you for joining today. I know you're surely really busy, but I would like to break the ice first. Well, I won't put who goes first, so feel free to take the mic. Uh, who are you? Who is your firm in the ecosystem? How did you end up in the rabbit hole? Whatever you want to talk about, introduction. The stage is sure, guys.
Sure. My name's Ollie. I work at Zellic. I head up sales here. I'm previously a DeFi security engineer specializing in EVM, Solana, and Move. So a little bit about Zellic. We are a top-tier smart contract audit firm. We specialize in high assurance reviews of complex and adversarial protocols. We perform deep technical audits, so smart contracts, protocol systems, and cryptographic implementations. And through research-driven security, we focus on protocol breaking bugs, like attackers would in the wild. So some of our clients include Layer 0, Solana Foundation, Chainlink, and of course, we were honored to work with PancakeSwap. I think this is one of several audits that we've done with them. So.
Cool. I guess I'll go next. Hi, everybody. My name is Patrick Collins. I'm one of the co-founders over at Cyfrin, security researcher, smart contract developer, and educator. And it was a blast to go through this code base and work with the PancakeSwap team. If you haven't heard of us before, we do security with some of the top protocols in the industry as well, like ZK Sync, Wormhole, Linea, Lido, and obviously PancakeSwap. We also believe very strongly that in order for the whole industry to be more secure, it cannot scale with just individuals doing one-on-one agreements with different groups. So we focus a lot on taking everything that we learn in our security reviews and then also giving it back to the community through our education products like Cyfrin Updraft. So if you want to learn about security, you want to become a auditor yourself, be sure to check out Cyfrin Updraft. And yeah, there were some absolute badasses who worked on this code base. So excited to talk to you all about how we make sure that PancakeSwap is safe. And to give everybody who's watching, I'm sure there's a lot of less technical people here, some assurance that what you're working with is a very solid code base.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm Casper. I'm the head of audits at Hexens. Pretty much the same story. Hexens is a Web3 security firm. We do a lot of DeFi things. We've worked with Lido, Eigenlayer, Layer 0, and of course PancakeSwap. Besides DeFi stuff, we also do a lot of off-chain. We do some ZK audits, Web 2.5 audits. We work with Solidity, Solana, Fuel. And I've been at Hexens for almost 2.5 years now. I've had the pleasure to work with a lot of great protocols. And of course, PancakeSwap has been a nice audit, so can't wait to talk about it.
Nice. Thank you, guys. It's really nice to see and hear, because we are virtual, how you end up here and what you guys are doing. But feels similar, but it's actually not similar. You have been giving a lot of examples that I forgot to mention when I was doing my research. It's like you have been working with pretty much the biggest crypto firms out there. I mean, and it's kind of amazing that there are a lot of people who we don't know who are working behind the scenes to keep us safe, not only for the users, but also for the protocols. So I would like to ask you, whoever wants to answer, when you first heard about PancakeSwap Infinity, what stood out you coming from a security standpoint? I mean, I'm sure you have heard about this before idea, the hooks idea, the modularity of a DEX, but from your security standpoint, I mean, maybe you see something that I'm not seeing when you hear about something new, a new way, a new contract. You hear it from your experience and says, hey, this could be really insecure. We need to focus a lot on this or that. It's like maybe I see it and I got hyped, and you got like, oh, maybe this will kill us all. I don't know. What's your first thought?
Yeah, it was exciting. It was exciting because you have, of course, the core DEX logic, but now it's in the context of serving as, a broader infrastructure layer. So you have to consider, additional composability and surface area risks that arise from that. And that was pretty exciting. And of course, a testament to PancakeSwap also understanding the security concerns associated with that is by engaging with a lot of auditors, and of course, in parallel, other platforms that have also developed the hook solution. So it's been very exciting.
I mean, from a security perspective, my first thought was like, all right, how would I break that? And my kind of gut reactions were like, all right, like implementing the hooks can be tricky. And if I was like a different protocol team, like how would I shoot myself in the foot, right? Because the code base could actually be super secure, but somebody works with it wrong, right? So how do we minimize those foot guns? And then also anytime we do something kind of more complex like this, my thoughts always go to like, okay, how could MEV jump into this and break this? How do we make sure that users who are interacting with this protocol aren't getting just destroyed by like MEV bots? How do we minimize that as well? So those were some of my initial reactions.
Yeah, good points. Like, totally agree with those. You want to minimize like what hooks can do. They shouldn't be able to like pivot from one hook to another. They should all be kept separate. Another thing that was mentioned is like kind of like the new architecture with kind of like the Delta invariant, where you can like kind of lock into the fault. You can perform a bunch of actions without any like checks on whether you've paid for that or not. And in the end, you just resolve all of those deltas to see if the protocol is still solvent or not. And that's actually really cool. I see this in a lot of new protocols that are using this as well. It's kind of like an invariant architecture where you can have a lot of flexibility and modularity that protocols can tap into. And it still keeps you very safe because at the end, like it is still solvent, of course, if the logic is correct. So that's something we've reviewed extensively and something we try to break.
Nice. I love how the first thing you guys have in mind is how I break this. It's like I feel this is the excitement you you have to keep doing this kind of stuff. It's like you don't get into the whole of how I destroy this. It's like there is no exciting anymore. I think, I don't know. I'm not in your minds, but I feel like I can live with this idea of breaking things as a way of living and don't lose the flame, right? Okay, I think you already mentioned this. Maybe you have just shared some alphas about the next thing I wanted to ask you, but you have audited a lot of protocols, different. I mean, different approaches, different objectives, different goals. But compared with all the protocols and all the teams you have been working, what made Infinity particular or unique and challenging? I mean, it's the flexibility, is what you said, Casper, that there are a lot of possible actions that a hook can do. I mean, what make it so unique or difficult to audit?
Yeah, sure. So like makes it more difficult, of course. With the flexibility comes complexity, right? So you allow users to do a lot of actions because you want to keep that flexibility, but you also don't want it to break anything, and you don't want to make it too easy for users to shoot themselves in the foot. So that's one of the challenging things, I would say. Besides that, there's like some like PancakeSwap Infinity combines a couple of other protocols approaches as well. So we looked into that, whether this is like composable, like whether we can do anything there, because just forking something is of course one thing, but if you want to change some stuff, you need to make sure that nothing of the original invariants break because of the changes.
Yeah, just kind of echo that. Like going into something like this, you still have pretty much all the same. You go with the same mentality you go into pretty much most security views. But yeah, one of the kind of important things about this one is, there are because this type of code base, there's other similar types of smart contracts out there. So you want to ask the question, okay, why did this other code base do it differently, right? And that was one of the tricky things that I know like our team had to go through. We went through, we went through lots of different implementations of something similar and said, okay, well, why did all of these different ones choose these different architectures? Is there a security reason why they chose to do this slightly different? Or was it just like a feature thing? Like why is everyone doing this slightly differently, or why is everyone doing this differently? So that was a lot of extra research time for the auditors. The good thing is, obviously, like this PancakeSwap is a very poppin' code base, right? So our team was already very familiar with PancakeSwap. So the incremental knowledge needed to like compare to all these other protocols was a bit fun.
Yeah, it's a super high TVL protocol. PancakeSwap supports a ton of users. I think with all the other shops on the call right now, we're used to supporting that and working that environment. But there were some really interesting things around hooks and sort of like, expanding out that modular infrastructure. So, just making sure that hooks can't re-enter core logic, making sure they can't manipulate the pool, state or control flow between accounting steps. There's just a whole bunch of sort of like interesting considerations that we needed to make here in the context of modular protocols like this. So that was exciting.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Without being, I don't want to go super techie, super deep in terms of what you guys actually done auditing PancakeSwap Infinity, but could you, each of you, slightly briefly explain what part of the audit you focus on, or just don't destroy my brain and let me know a little bit what you guys were focused in the audit process, or maybe you all touch. I don't know if you collaborate or all yourself on different parts. Also, the audience don't know, so please give us some light about it.
Yeah, sure. So for us, we went over the V4 universal router, which typically whenever you make a swap, you send it through. Like when you go to the PancakeSwap UI and you say, okay, I want to swap, my USDT for USDC or whatever you want to do, you'll send it through this universal router contract, right? And inside of this transaction, it's actually got a bunch of kind of complicated commands to make it super gas efficient, to make it work with these hooks, and it routes your trade to the correct contracts. So that was the main one that we worked on, and you can kind of think of it as like the entry point of making a swap.
So there are two main components that we looked at. The first was the core protocol, and then the second was the periphery, which also included the router, and touches on a lot of the logic that Patrick was referring to. The pool logic is central to the protocol. It manages liquidity swaps, mints and burns, things like that. It also has the integration points, so that's where you can have a call out to optional hooks. It's also, interestingly, it has a centralized architecture, so it's a singleton architecture, so all the pools live in one contract, and it also does state tracking. On the periphery side, of course, you had the router, but you also had sort of different functionality that allows users to view the state, look at tick data, estimating gas costs for swaps and things like that. And you also have like NFT or position managers. It's a CLLM, so it uses sort of like NFTs to represent positions and things like that. So that's what we looked at in a bit of a nutshell.
Yeah, pretty much the same for us. We looked at core and periphery, just the full audit of those. Then after that, after fixes came in, we did like fix reviews, then later some changes. So we did an incremental review. And yeah, for core, we highly focus on asset flow. Of course, this, like you said, it's just a singleton contract, so as it's resolved in the end. Besides that, we looked at the different pools that there are, the bin pools and the CL pools. And for periphery, sometimes these are just like periphery contracts without any assets, but for PancakeSwap, it's a bit more interesting. There is some state going on, and there are some assets stored, for example, in the position manager that you want to make sure that that's correct.
Great. I have to do the gossip question. Like, feels like all of you were working on different, but really close to each other, since you were touching the core of PancakeSwap and for sure PancakeSwap Infinity. So how does competitiveness feels in security? It's like, guys, you work together. Sometimes you have talks, you have anything in common, or it's more like the first break it, the winner. How does it work in security? How does the firms? This is the gossip question, like the one that goes in the middle for you to chit chat a little bit. But how does it sound in security? Is as competitive as it sounds, or it's more like chill and friendly?
I think there's always an aspect of competition when you're doing audits. That's why a lot of people are in the space. When you look at competitive audit platforms, when you look at bug bounties, speaking of Zellic, the vast majority of auditors come from the CTF or the competitive hacking scene. So this is, something that highly motivates them. They want to be the best at security, and they want to find those cool and exciting bugs. But the reality is, it's like, PancakeSwap coordinated independent audits that weren't working together intentionally, and there's a lot of reasons why a lot of firms do this, and that is because it provides a lot of redundancy. Different firms can come in with different methodologies. They can have their own mental models, different tooling and experience. So that creates a lot of layered coverage, and that can help catch a lot of things that one firm might miss. And so we're just trying to find a way to provide the best security, and we're always recommending, and I think I could speak for Hexens and Cyfrin on the call, that clients get multiple audits for some of these reasons. It also allows us to have, unbiased reviews. We want to have different parties where it's not like, hey, I know my teammate looked at this and it's likely good, so I'm going to assume that it's okay. We want to make sure that other firms are also coming in to look at that as well, so that we get that additional oversight. So yeah, those are a few things come to mind.
Yeah, same. Like, a little competition for security firms is definitely a good thing. And yeah, it's great that PancakeSwap went the extra mile. Said, hey, we want to have several different firms. We get different points of view looking at the code base. That's fantastic. And yeah, at the end of the day, there's competition, but at the end of the day, we're not really trying to I'm gonna screw the other firm out of it. Like at the end of the day, we're working with you. We're trying to make you as secure as possible, right? And it's if you have multiple firms, working on the same code base, it's actually good because then we are all aligned to make you look good. Because if PancakeSwap gets hacked, we all look like idiots. So we're even though it is competitive, we want the other ones to succeed because they're going to. Because them succeeding means we succeeded, and at the end of the day, the most important thing is to make PancakeSwap as safe as possible. So, it's good that we get to be a little bit more collaborative on something like this too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. A little bit of competition is always great, especially when doing multiple audits. It's always the best, and if those audits are simultaneous, of course you're going to have a little bit of competition, but that's also good, right? This pushes us to the next level. Yeah, I think there is not any bad blood between firms. We just want to push each other, and I think on a firm level there's might be some competition, but across between auditors themselves, we're all just friendly and we want to help each other out. So.
Thanks for the honest and funny answers, guys. It's just something I wanted to know, and I know it gets a little bit more spicy also for the audience. If not, we all see what movies or I don't know TV shows gives us, so it's really nice to have it on the first touch from you. This is I don't know how to ask this that I want to ask, because for sure I cannot give leaks or things, or maybe yes, or maybe you can rephrase it the way you want. But were there any interesting, I won't say risk, we can say bugs or design flaws that you discovered during these audits that for sure are fixed now, or you found a way to fix it before going live, or anything that challenged you, or something that appeared and you said, I don't know how to deal with this, and you needed to work a lot in the whole process of auditing Infinity?
Yeah, so for us, some of the more interesting findings for us were MEV findings, where somebody could get front run or bypass slippage protection to make sure so people would have crappy swaps or get sandwiched or whatever. What was great is we said, hey, we found this bug. PancakeSwap team said, okay, cool, we'll fix it, and they fixed it right away, and it is resolved in the Infinity product. So, but yeah, that was one of going to this security review. That was one of the top things we were thinking about was, all right, how could MEV kind of take advantage of this. Because of how sensitive something like a universal router would be to MEV. But yeah, team fixed it, which was great.
On our side, I wouldn't say we found any major design flaws. I think by the time we had visibility on the code and started the audit, sort of that core design had been looked at by a few other players. So it was, it wasn't hardened. I wouldn't stretch to say, but it definitely had some coverage there. There were some interesting, smaller bugs around sort of mint burn functionality, which could lead to more profitable swaps than going through the regular swapping route, and double spending bugs and things like that for networks that support native and ERC20 tokens. But outside of that, it was pretty good. It was very, very good protocol. And of course, working with PancakeSwap, the engineers there are top notch. And anytime anything came up, they were right on it to fix it. So it was a pleasure to work with them.
Yeah, from our side, we had one pretty cool finding in the core protocol. Basically, in the bin pools, we found this bug where you could bypass some protection for inflation attacks, where you could basically exploit someone first depositing inside of a bin inside of a bin pool. So this is a bin pool is just a collection of a lot of bins, and you could an LP would deposit into that a new one almost very often. So this would happen quite often, and you could exploit this first depositor to steal a part of their funds. So this was also forked from Trader Joe as well. So we reported this to Trader Joe as well, and they fixed it there. Then of course, PancakeSwap fixed it as well. We did the fix review, and just.
Thanks, guys. I feel like we are talking about double spending, MIV protection like forever. Like those are the major things. Like I don't know, the last 4 years, it's like it's the simpler things to understand, the most complicated to avoid. It seems it's like I feel like talking about double spending, but what, the Bitcoin white paper or something. I want to do a question. We are not here to throw a rock to anyone. I mean, I don't want names. I just want to ask, like, in your experience, auditing a lot of different protocols with a lot of different approach and goals and objectives, what's one underrated risk that protocols, and I mean like all the protocols, often overlooked?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say,
no, Casper, please.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So for me, it's always like dependencies. Like that's the very first thing. It's always oracles or dependencies on other protocols. If you're integrating with some other protocol, the bugs are always there. Like people forget things there. So what I always say is like, don't always audit in isolation. A lot of protocols always want to only audit this part, not the other part. And they think that gives them better value, but it's really not the case, because you want to do holistic audits that take everything into account. If you want to do isolation audits, sure, but don't forget about the overall audits. It's like writing only unit tests and not full integration tests, and you always miss stuff. That's like the number one for me.
I have like a laundry list, but yeah, oracles and libraries is a big one. We actually saw this month, I forget who it was. It was I'm pretty sure it was one of the Move code bases where they just kind of assumed the libraries were good, and that was actually where the vulnerability was. Yeah, it's you really, if you're going to use libraries, you need to make sure that those are audited. But for me, like a couple of the lower hanging fruit that a lot of protocols forget about is the deploy scripts. So, we still to this day will get code bases from, really, really competent firms, really, really competent protocols, and they will send us a code base and they have their private key just like straight up in plain text, hard coded into the code base.
No way.
And we'll say, hey, glad that you trust us with your private key, but maybe don't do that because you never know. And we have to go through a process of trying to help them change their admin contracts, because they've just basically, once you expose your private key, you need to assume it's compromised. You need to don't trust us, don't trust anybody with your private key, and we have to go through that process. So but deploy scripts can be even trickier than that. If you have in your deploy script your contract is owned by the same key that deployed it, that's kind of like a gotcha. It's much better to deploy your contract and transfer ownership to a different key other than the deployer key. But there's a lot of small gotchas like that. So for people watching right here, I'm sure you guys have hardware wallets or software wallets or something. You don't want to have you want to have different wallets to do different things sometimes, right? Like if you have a doxed wallet, you don't want to have a lot of money associated with the doxed wallet. It's the same thing for smart contract developers. Your deployer key ideally is different than the actual admin key. So yeah, deploy scripts, not having, as Casper said, not having the oracles or libraries kind of in scope. And then a lot of smaller stuff, like maybe not having enough documentation. At Cyfrin, we do a lot of stateful and stateless fuzzing, which the industry has gotten a lot better of over the last couple of years, but it's still something that we use to find bugs. And if more teams did more stateless and stateless fuzzing, they probably would find more bugs. For me, it's so easy in Foundry that I almost just kind of figure like, all right, if you're going to write unit tests, they might as well just be stateless fuzzing tests because it's so much easier just to write them these days. For non-technical people, I'm definitely boring you, but there's a lot of little gotchas that just can really increase your code quality and increase the likelihood that you actually won't have a bug. So those are some of the things that people forget to do, or maybe they haven't been coding enough to kind of know what they're looking for. Or, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of projects go, AI, the AI wrote the unit tests, and the AI didn't really understand the code base, and the unit tests are shit. So stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I share a lot of Casper and Patrick's sentiments. Especially as projects, whether the DeFi or L1 protocol level, become more modular, integration risks continue to be an area that can be missed. And I think that's partly because there's always a desire to launch in Web3. Our industry moves extremely fast. I've been in it for 3 to 4 years, but it feels like a decade or so. I'm sure Patrick's pretty OG here, so I'm sure he can relate to how long it feels to work and live in Web3. So we're there's always a tendency.
These gray hairs from this industry starting to come in way too early.
There's integrations require you to make considerations about behavior that might be outside like a developer's immediate purview, especially as they're trying to get a protocol launched. So we're always keeping an eye out for risks across the stack, particularly when you have integrations with oracles, bridges, relayers, and transaction bundlers and multi-sigs, safes, and front ends to back ends and things like that. So
Thanks, guys. It was not boring at all. I think it was one of the questions that I wanted to do the most. I'm not sure if the audience wanted the same, but yeah, I really, when I was drafting the questions, I really wanted to do this question just to know. I'm also kind of a geek on these kind of things, unless I don't understand the full picture. But it's really nice to have your advice on this, because you are seeing this 24/7, and yeah, I think this huge ecosystem moves super fast. I'm here since 2020, and I feel like I lose the rest of my hair. I destroyed my sleeping schedule. It's like I had only 5 years past it, and it doesn't seem to get better anytime soon. So talking about and we are running out of questions. I don't want to have you here the whole morning, afternoon, or evening, depending where you are. But how do you think security has evolved over the past couple of years? That we know, couple of years, it's like a whole life in crypto. Patrick mentioned that now we are seeing a lot of crappy content made by AI, which is really sad, to be honest. But are builders getting better at this? How do you feel security today compared to, I don't know, the last cycle?
I feel like we could all talk about this question for a long time. I feel like we're both getting better and worse at the same time. So the developers and the projects at the kind of upper tiers of the industry are getting way better, right? Fuzzing tools are much easier to use these days. Common attack vectors are much better known. We have much better static analysis tools, formal verification, something like Halmos or Satori. Using those tools it's much easier. Knowing when to use those tools has become much easier. We've seen a lot of classic hacks play out. We have different newsletters, new outlets that says, hey, such and such just got hacked. So block threat intelligence is a newsletter, and they post about, what hacks are happening in the industry. At the end of 2024, we actually saw before last year, most of the top hacks in the industry were like access validation issue, or like MEV, or like Oracle manipulation, yada, yada, yada. Last year, we actually saw the top hack be private key leaks. And this year, we're seeing kind of phishing, like classic Web 2, be some of the top issues, the top attacks in DeFi. So that is telling us either we're getting worse at OPSEC, so much so that the private key leaks and stuff are worse than the smart contract hacks, or our smart contracts are getting so battle hardened and so much more secure that hackers are saying, you know what, hacking the smart contract is actually too hard. Let's just go back to trying to hack the humans because they're much weaker than an immutable code base. So I think from a smart contract perspective, from what I've seen at the top projects, the projects with the most TVL, PancakeSwap being one of them, the security is actually getting much, much better. But on the human side, we're actually not improving, and hackers are taking notice of this and are really, really exploiting that. So like Bybit, happened this year. It was $1.4 billion hack. They had taken over the Safe UI with some sophisticated social engineering and phishing, and it was a combination of like classic phishing combined with the fact that you had human beings not verifying what they were signing. So again, you had a human weakness combined with a human weakness to steal $1.4 billion, right? So the smart contracts were solid. They were using hardware wallets. They were using recommended best practices, but there were a couple of just human issues there. So as like an industry, that's kind of the next thing we need to focus on from a security perspective. But smart contracts, believe it or not, are actually getting really, really good. Now, I will say that with an asterisk as well, because we recently got our first audit client where they told us that they vibe coded the smart contracts, and oh my God, we tore it apart. So I will say, if you're trying to vibe code your smart contracts, maybe don't, because you can vibe code a website, because if you screw up a website, whatever, you can just roll back, you can just fix, if your user gets the wrong cat image on your cat image showing website, like who cares? But if you get the wrong swap, or you have the wrong hex, or you have the wrong whatever in your smart contract, you could cost your community billions of dollars, and it's not acceptable to have issues in Web3. So that's my rant about security.
Yeah, I think you're much better off taking the upfront cost on improved development practices than trying to vibe code a smart contract than trying to just put something together and have the auditors fix it and basically have to redo all of your code for you. But the people in crypto, at least at the upper tier, the top projects, they tend to be in crypto because they love crypto, and as a result of that, they're very familiar with the history of hacks. In 2021, we had flash loans and oracles. 2022, we had bridges. 2023, we saw competitions. We saw clients getting audits from multiple teams, mature audit teams, and more recently we have modular AMMs like PancakeSwap, and you have new considerations around hooks. So at the innovation layer, I think security is getting way better. Projects are designing with security in mind from day one. They're reserving budget for multiple audits. They're running bug bounties, and they are thinking about security in terms of threat modeling, not just unit testing. So they want to identify areas of the code base which could be susceptible to risks, and they really deconstruct the business logic around that, understand the state, understand how malicious actors might behave, and then reflect that in reports and reflect that so that the users of those protocols can see what sorts of considerations were made. So it's a great time to be in the space. But no, Patrick makes some really good points about in terms of like where we're seeing the largest exploits occur. And unpacking that is probably a bit of a tricky issue, but I think certainly it comes down to higher tier projects taking security way more seriously.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, not many more points to add, to be honest. I think nowadays the existing builders are getting way, way better. Like you said, they're developing with security in mind from day one. That really helps. I think this version of PancakeSwap has been developed like that as well, just with security in mind. And that just makes for a very, very much better smart contracts. I think the common mistakes are also less and less occurring. Like most issues that we find nowadays are like for super custom bugs in like too complex code bases. So complexity is always like a good measure of how many bugs you're going to find. So yeah, like Patrick said, I think one of the next steps that verticals really need to look at is basically their Web2 security. and kind of like their OPSEC for their developers, but also like for their infrastructure. Like if they have any like off-chain infrastructure, how is that structured? And attackers might be looking into that as well.
Nice. Really, really insightful answers, Guy. I think this is kind of a link, and I would also take the responsibility of the user's education. I know you guys are really into that also, some of you. But yeah, I think we build this among all, so we cannot foresee the importance of educating the person behind the screen, because I think it's the weaker link. So I will also take the responsibility of that part also. And I cannot laugh about the idea of this vibe coding that we are seeing everywhere. It's like I was watching the feed on Twitter yesterday or something, and I got to one guy that I know personally, and he knew anything about code, at least the last time I saw him, like 6 months ago. And he was like, oh, today I started vibe coding a bot for Twitter that reacts with memes with anyone mention if. I built it with GPT. I didn't even look to the API. I mean, in 30 minutes, I have it. Now I think I can build a project or something. The tweet was something like that. And it was like, we are getting more stupid every day. Like, we are getting, as Patrick said, the biggest builders are getting better and better. And on the other top of the mountain, it's like now it's everything as a service, like coding as a service, memes as a service, build your project as a service. And I think that comes with a lot of risks. We are not even realize how far this can go. So thank you a lot for your answers, and let's keep building and focusing from my side for users education, for your side. Please be close to the protocols that we need you a lot. And just to wrap up, I don't want to extend a lot. What's your number one piece of advice if a new protocol wants to launch something as complex as Infinity? Doesn't need to be Cordex and swaps, but something like super huge that maybe it's not super common in the space. It's like a new, I don't know if you have checked the stablecoins swaps from Orbital that they have just launched, like really hard logics that, I don't know. What's your piece of advice for this kind of new launches in the space when a project comes to us for help?
Keep it simple, I would say. Like, don't go too hard on complexity. Keep things simple. If you do need like more complex things, like make it modular. Have different components have their own privileges and responsibilities, so that you can kind of separate this, so that if there's a bug in one, it doesn't necessarily go into the other components. So you can kind of separate this. Again, like, keep it simple. If you know the MakerDAO code base, like besides their naming, they do keep everything very simple. So that, yeah, something like that. I would also say don't slack on tests. Write your tests. That's like the number one. Even before you go into an audit, write your tests.
Yeah, I would say, please, for the love of God, don't send me your private key. And make sure you have some very solid documentation. Your auditors will thank you. Your community will thank you, even if it's just some NAT spec or a link to your developer docs. Those are really, really, really helpful to making sure that what you want the code to do matches what the code actually does, and making sure like an auditor can verify that.
Yeah, I totally agree with those points, and think that it's security comes from having the right mindset. So you want to be thinking about shipping a product. Of course, you do have timelines, but at the end of the day, in Web3, you're really shipping an attack surface. So I think if developers adopt that mindset, it can go a long way in ensuring that they're taking the time to think about threat models. They're taking the time to think about like economic and game theoretic considerations, and getting multiple auditors on it. So yeah, and security is an ongoing process. It's not just a checkbox.
Nice. I love that about the process and not the isolated checkbox. Thank you, guys. I just want to drop one more before we wrap up. We have been talking about 50 minutes, so I will give us some space to you. This is getting more even more simple for the audience that are maybe not too technical, but they use DeFi all the time or crypto, and would say something like, what will be your one-to-one advice, security advice for all the newcomers? We are seeing a lot of retailers to crypto entering from Web2, DeFi. How would you navigate? Or I don't know, if your mom wants to start on DeFi, I don't know, your uncle, like in those Christmas parties that, hey man, what do you do for a living? And you cannot even explain. And now these people is coming to the space. What would be your piece of advice for them? Like how to stay safe in this ecosystem?
You want my hot take? Don't interact with DeFi unless you can verify your call data, because what's going to happen is a website's going to be hacked. You're going to send a transaction, you're not going to know what it does, and you're going to lose all your money. That's my hot take.
Tough answer.
I know, but I've seen it. I've seen it happen too many times where you go to a website, you sign something, you have no clue what the transaction does, and you lose your money. You know, it's a lot easier to hack a website and just, you know, we focus so much on, oh hey, like make sure you're using a hardware wallet, but if you don't know what's going on in your hardware wallet, how useful is it really, right? If you're not verifying what's going on there. So that's my hot take. And we really need our wallets UX to be better, because right now, if you're not a developer, you're basically always at risk of losing all your money in your wallet if you're not verifying your call data.
You're always shooting blind, really.
You're always shooting blind. Yep, exactly. And I know that that's a lot of people don't like to hear that, but yeah, that's my hot take. But very timely. Oh God.
I feel in some way like you're touching on like maybe something that happens like subconsciously to people when they look at crypto and they feel so scared about getting involved. They're about to sign this transaction, and you know it based off of the UI, it seems like it should do X, but they really don't know, and so they're taking a massive leap of faith, and that's terrifying.
Yeah. Very timely. We actually just the Cyfrin team, we just released a wallet call data verification course, if you want to check that out. But even that, like, it's tough. Like you pretty much have to be a developer, or your transactions have to be simple enough where your wallet can decode them. So like, you know, there are some wallets, like, you know, a lot of software wallets like MetaMask and Ravi, which will decode your call data, which make it really easy for a normie to read. So if you train up, you know, your question was like, hey, how do you get your mom into this? If you train up your mom on, you know, learning how to read decoded call data on MetaMask or Ravi, and then only sending transactions where she can understand the decoded call data, great. There are other hardware wallets like Grid Lattice Plus that also do a great job of decoding your call data. Yeah, I could probably rant about this, but it sounds like we're on the same page. Yeah, like exactly, Ollie. Like we're kind of shooting blind. You're kind of taking this leap of faith, and that's quite terrifying. And it kind of should be, right? Because if you have a lot of money in your wallet, like that's how people get drained, right? You see all these tweets, oh my God, I got drained, blah, blah, blah. Well, if they could read what their transaction was actually doing, they could notice, oh my God, this is going to drain me. I shouldn't sign this, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Like, don't throw your life savings into a contract if you don't understand what it does.
Yeah.
Well, you started really hopeless. I was expecting some full of glitter answer, like super, really good speech, but then you turn out to something like more understandable, and at least to not feel like we are all going to get drained. So yeah, I think the user experience. I mean, we end up like thinking that the user experience is should be one of the top priorities. I mean, I know you wouldn't say that because you maybe come from a really behind the scenes part, like it's even more important. But as you said, like for all the normies, and I include me as a normie out there, like should be pretty much easier than actually it is. And I think that's a responsibility for all the ecosystem, not only for the projects we are here, and not even for the others we are talking every day together. So yeah, I definitely got really hyped about you guys coming in. You answer all of the questions that I have, even the one maybe a little bit spicy or not, you didn't even get too technical. So I'm really glad. So I will. I feel I talked too much, so I will give you these minutes to wrap up the way you wanted. So I just want to say thank to the three of you for coming and staying almost 1 hour talking about security with me.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. Stay safe, everyone out there. And yeah, looking forward to people interacting with PancakeSwap, or I was going to say V4, but the Infinity product here. So, and then hopefully you all verify your call data when you're actually interacting with it.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. It was great to connect with you, Fran, Casper, and Patrick. Definitely check out Patrick's tutorial there on checking out call data. That sounds pretty cool. I'm going to get on it after the call. But yeah, we're just going to continue to do good work with top quality projects. And we just want to make sure that crypto is a safe place for retail to express themselves financially. So that's part of why we're here. So thank you.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, thanks for inviting us. I mean, we're really happy to have been able to help secure PancakeSwap. Both the reports are public, so everyone can see that as well. The work that has been done, we've all been helping so that people can trust what is happening. We want to make sure that not everything is that you don't have to do everything yourself, so we can help with that, and that people can still, verify that and safely interact with the protocol. So thank you.
Okay, thank you also all of you out there listening for almost 1 hour. As you may realize, we take security very important. So I will thank again Ollie, Patrick, and Casper, and the three projects behind them for not only taking the time and the work of auditing Infinity, but also coming to here to answer all of the questions that we have. And I will definitely check that tutorial, Patrick. And I will still also always praise about letting retailers to express themselves financially. I think it's magic, so I will definitely write it down and steal it for other space. So
give me a shout out. Give me a shout out if you can. Appreciate it.
I will give you, whenever I use it, I will give you a shout out. Okay, thank you again, the three of you, for taking the time today. I hope it doesn't interrupt too much with your busy schedule. And yeah, thank you all of there for being here and tune in for more insightful AMAs as this one. And I will definitely invite you, the three of you, maybe at some point later in the future to see what's coming up in DeFi security. Thank you, guys. I enjoyed really, really much this space.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.